Monday, March the 18th, 6:22 p.m. on the East Coast, 3:22 Pacific Standard Time. Welcome back to the Mars Mindset. It's good to have y'all. Hopefully you had a good weekend. My old principal, Miss Massey. So I used to cry not to go to school every day. Every day. And Miss Massey used to say, she kind of talked like my grandma. Marshalla, something like that. You got the Monday blues. Little did she know I had the Tuesday blues, the Wednesday blues, the Thursday blues, and the Friday blues. I hated school. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying I hope that you don't have the Monday blues. And if you do, comment beast. We can talk about it. Or click that link in the Zoom and we can talk about it. Today's topic is marriage license renewals. What are your thoughts on the idea of having to renew your marriage license every X amount of years? If you are for it, why are you for it? How often should people have to renew? And if you're against it, why are you against it? Now, y'all know how deep these things go. This really is going to become a conversation, or has the potentiality to become a conversation about, is till death do us part realistic? So I have somebody that wants to come up on the Instagram. I think this is my man. And so, yeah, since this is my man, I'll bring him up and we'll have a conversation. So should you have to renew your marriage license every so often? I want this to be a group conversation. I don't want it to be the thing where I ask each person a question and they give me their opinion. So if someone says something that you disagree with, you want to retort, put your hand up, request a live, whatever the case may be, and we can have a conversation across platforms if need be. So Moreland, you up first. What up, what's up, Sarge? I'm chilling. What's happening?
Ain't about to go in the gym, but I seen you pop up on the IG, so I said, let me join this interesting conversation here because that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, so I don't think I've seen you since you got promoted. Have I seen you? Either which way, congratulations. I'm proud of you. That's good stuff. You know what I'm saying? So this is the question, right? And I'll have it perfect. I'll get it perfect before the show's over. But do you think that marriage licenses should have to be renewed? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so they have to be renewed. Why do you think marriage licenses should have to be renewed?
I mean, if you think about it, like in our profession, right? People go to jail for a term, and jail is an institution. And at some point during that term, the person has an opportunity to get out.
Okay. I'm on a bit of a delay, and I'm thinking like, okay, all right, okay.
So marriage is also an institution. However, it's an institution that has a life sentence. There is no parole, there is no nothing. Plus, most people go into marriages off emotion. They don't do the real homework, the real legwork that it takes to be in a marriage and to stay in a marriage. So I think nowadays, because of the generation that we are in, I think it's to people's interest to have the option to get out. Because a lot of other things, you got options. That you get a gym membership, you got an option to renew it. You know what I mean? Sam's Club, you got an option to renew it.
Right.
Everything has an option to renew except marriage. You just kind of stuck in there. So I think if you give people the option, but I really feel like in a deeper sense, even just before giving people the option, before you even get married, it's contractual. You have to negotiate terms before you say I do. Save everybody the trouble. Because if it don't work, you already got your terms. You know what you're getting into. The darkness of marriage that doesn't work is you don't know what you're about to lose. So going into a situation where you know, all right, if this doesn't work, here's what we already agreed to, would be a lot easier on everybody. And then plus, maybe you was in that happy mood at year 1 and year 3. You want that? I want to opt out like NFL. I'm out.
Okay, so because you said in the comments 3 years, so your idea would be every 3 years.
Every 3 years, because I'm like, your license, well, they didn't up the license to 8 years, but your registration is 2 years. You know what I'm saying? You got the option to still drive on the street with that car or park it in the garage. You know what I'm saying? You got pre-check is every 5 years.
Okay, so I was gonna ask him that too. So Mimi put in the chat, she said, "Isn't that a prenup?" So you're an advocate for prenups. That's basically Would you say
basically. But see, everybody doesn't have that. I'm thinking before you can say I do, you have to have this part of, is this part of your marriage?
Okay, so there should be, so it sounds like you're saying there should be a auto initiated prenup that has basic basic contracts. Like you buy a house, every time somebody buys a house, it's certain things that are just in the contract, right? And so, but you're saying one of those things should be whatever the agreed upon renewal date is. Okay, so let me ask you this. If that were the case, do you think I really want to ask you two questions. Do you think that would make marriages work out better? And the other part of it is, do you think people would be happier?
I think there could be some happiness, but I think it would give people easy outs. I think people wouldn't have you wouldn't have longevity in marriage. And I think a lot of people, Chris Rock said something years ago that made a lot of sense. He said, if you've been together for 10 years, well, if you get a divorce after 10 years, you've really been broke up for 5. You just been waiting around to try to get to a certain point. You've been together for 20 years. You've really been broke up for 10. You just trying to get to that certain point. And that's like, when you think about it, it's like, yeah, usually people get to a certain point and things just kind of deteriorate. Mm-hmm. And each year it just gets a little bit worse until finally you get a court date and everything else gets resolved. But yeah, to ask your question, yeah.
Okay, I got you. So I got another question for you. It might be two. Do you think that based on what we currently know about like marriages and relationships and divorce fallout and divorce rulings and who gets the kids and all of those things that come with divorce, who do you think, if anybody, would benefit from a renewal process?
Both parties could benefit. I think I think the children could lose out the most. Mm-hmm. Because if I got a way out and I'm like 3 years, I'm like, yeah, we got one kid. I already know what I'm up to lose. I'm just gonna go ahead and not redo when I'm out. So kids would definitely lose out. I think just equal. Both parties would benefit. I don't know who would benefit the most.
Well, I'm gonna tell you why I asked the question. I asked the question because typically men feel like we lose out, right?
That's what.
And so the question really is, if you instituted the marriage license renewal, would men feel like this is better for us, or would men be like, nah, this shit gonna be even worse, dog?
I think that would benefit, especially if you're going with certain terms ahead of the game. Men go absolutely benefit. I feel like men take L's in divorce, tremendous L's. For whatever reason, it just societal influence, but men take the most risk. Now I give it to you. If there are children involved, I got a lot of respect for women because women have babies. Mm-hmm. And then you talk about the institution of marriage. I look at it totally different because women give completely into a marriage. They give up themselves. They give up their family. They give up their name. They give. They give up their body.
Their body, yeah.
A lot of giving. And then, man, we do a lot of taking. I understand that. But marriage boils down to money and finances and everything else. And men just get reamed when it comes to divorce.
Okay. So I got 2 people in my members area with their hands up. You're more than welcome to hang out if you want to. If you got rolled, just let me know. It's all good. They might have. All right, cool. So Cindy and then Mimi. Cindy, what you got?
Well, I think that we shouldn't have a marriage renewal thing, but I can see us having it for tax purposes. Now, I don't think every 3 years is, fair. I think that's just cutting it a little bit, whatever. But maybe like every 20. Yeah, I think it's too soon for every 3 years. I think that, maybe every 20 years, every 25 years is significant because of tax purposes. That's the only reason why I would see we having to renew something
20
for
years.
a tax credit.
Okay.
Make sure the taxes are good between the two of us, okay? But as far as prenups are good. I mean, there's safety there. But then again, you also got to think too, if we got to renew our marriage license, a lot of people just renew vows. So they just
But that's
have
a
little
choice.
private ceremonies.
Yeah, but the vow thing is different than the marriage license.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes
it
and
is.
no,
Yeah, no,
because
it is.
a marriage license is just
Look,
a legal
listen,
document.
Cindy, you getting way deep down too into it, right? Right.
Hmm.
In order to be lawfully married, you have to go before a governing body and get an
Right,
actual marriage license, right? Right.
right,
If you don't do that, then in the eyes of the law, you aren't married. Now, there could be people who come on here and say, "Well, I don't think the government should have anything to do with it." Okay, cool, but that's not the conversation that we have, right?
right.
Talking about the way things actually are. My wife
But
and I, we could just go renew. We could go renew our vows at any point, right?
right,
That doesn't
yeah,
require us to go before the governing body and say, "Hey, we're renewing our vows." We can go to Casey or Keisha, who are ordained ministers, and just have them
yeah,
for us. But I'm talking about the legality part of it, where after 3 years if you Moreland or 25 years if you Cindy,
yeah.
you just go your separate ways.
But also too, some states, if you're together 7+ years, you're technically married.
Yeah, I understand that, but we
I
have we're
think it's
having a
called the
conversation in
common
theory.
law.
So say we take common law off the books, right? Common law
Yeah.
doesn't exist. If you wanted to get married, you get married, and when you go get married, you sign a paper saying you have to renew your marriage in X amount of years. If not, you are no longer married.
But
You have
does
to
that
come
make
before us,
divorce free?
huh?
But does that open the door for making divorce free? Like, okay, I don't like them. I'm not in love with her anymore. We're not going to renew our license and therefore we're divorced.
Well, if you don't renew your license, you're not married no more. Now, whatever happens in divorce proceedings, I don't. We can have that conversation, right?
But then you'd have to
But
file
should
for
but should
divorce
you
if you're
have the
not going
option?
to.
Because you have the option. Like you could get divorced after a year. So the divorce, if you say to ground the conversation, we could say the divorce aspect of it's the same.
Okay. Because you can have a marriage annulled after a certain amount of time.
I understand that.
So I was just wondering, like, if we're going to renew our marriage license, then if we don't, that opens up the divorce talk, or we're not legally married, or are we? I mean, yeah,
It's not
I would
that
just say
complex.
tax
Like
services.
you have a driver's license, right, Cindy?
Yeah.
Okay. And how often do you have to renew your driver's license?
I have to renew mine. I think it's every 5 years.
So say in 5 years you don't renew it. Guess what? You're not a licensed driver anymore.
No, I'm a licensed driver. I just don't have a valid license.
No, you're not. No, in the eyes of the law, you are driving without a license. You are an unlicensed driver.
Oh, I still have a license. I don't have to take the test, actually. I get it.
Cindy, listen to what I'm saying,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You have to. I'm not talking about taking a test. All I'm saying is, if you don't renew your license in 5 years, and my
Yeah.
Sergeant Moreland here pulls you over for riding around and getting it, and you say, "Well, here's my license, my expired license," he's probably gonna write you a ticket for driving without a license.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so to cross over, right? If
Yep.
we instituted the marriage renewal thing, and we say 3 years or 25 years or 7 years or whatever number of years each person is picking, and that time frame comes around, you ain't married no more. You don't have the obligations that come with being married. You are just no longer married.
Yeah.
But you're okay with that. But you're saying you should have to. It should be 20-year intervals.
Well, yeah. I mean, give the marriage a chance. I mean, to renew the license, but if you opt out before the 25, that's your choice because it didn't work out.
Okay. All right. So Moreland's gonna go to the gym, so I want to get his chance to. Moreland, did you have a response? I know when she said 20, 25 years, he was like, "God damn."
So in terms of going back to the institution of jail, 20 to 25 years is considered a life sentence. So if we go back to what I said from the beginning, marriage is for
Marriage is a life sentence.
as he said, you can be considered whether you want to be married after this life sentence. So I like the 3-year interval. Matter of fact, imagine if you took say $1,000 a year, and it costs $1,000 a year to stay married, and then every 3 years you renew, and you bring to the court three grand. That 3 grand goes in escrow. So then after year 6, now you got 6 grand in escrow. So as you said, if you don't renew your license, you just said unlicensed, no longer married couple. But however, if you get to year 7 and you still have 2 more years to go, and you decide to now you want to divorce, so you have $6,000 plus in escrow to cover the cost of attorney fees and whatever else, and you split up what's left thereafter.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. Steph said, "What happens to your children?" Casey wants to know if you're married.
Yes, so I did my first life sentence. My first marriage was 20 years. So,
It all makes sense now.
I
Okay.
mean, I did a 20-year bid in Attica. Is it right?
It makes sense now. Carry on. I have context.
but I did my 20-year bid. So
Okay, but you remarried since then.
yeah.
So you're in the middle of another 20-year bid, 2025, right? Okay, cool. So last question for you, and like I said, however long you want to stick around, you can stick around. Does your perspective come from your personal subjective experiences?
Absolutely. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it did. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it did. Because there were periods in the first, marriage that I was like, hey, it'd be nice if I could just be like, all right,
take your power back.
Yeah, hey, this was cool. You know what I mean? We got kids. I appreciate you. That would have been cool. However, it didn't work that way. So you try to navigate and make things work. And sometimes in trying to make it work, you make it worse. And the longer you stay, the more financially responsible you become. So.
Okay. I'll ask you another. Well, I'm gonna go to Mimi. If you're still here, I got another question for you.
Yeah.
Mimi, what you got? Casey came into.
Okay, first let me say,
hold
comparing.
on 1 second, Mimi. Just for reference, just because the Instagram video is not gonna be for replay. Other than maybe I'll post it on Instagram. But Casey, who's in my members area, said she needed to put a face to the name in the comments, so she came over to the Instagram so she could see my man Moreland. All right, so. And if y'all want to move this to Instagram, that's fine. That's fine too. I'm good either which way. It's cool. I know my members, they like the members area. They feel like they get secluded off. Lil says she likes the $1,000 idea. That's in the comments. And if y'all notice that I read the comments more on Instagram, it's because I'm not screen recording this one. So the replay won't have it. It'll just be on Zoom and like that. All right, Mimi. Mimi, so let me just ask you the question. Do you think marriage licenses should have to be renewed? Are you for or against that?
Have to be no. Is it an absolutely wonderful idea? Yes, but it should be the choice of the members involved in the marriage. I don't believe that that's something that somebody should have to do. And let me say, this is a perfect segue into my other response. It should be optional. And here's why I say that. Because comparing, it's wild AF to me to compare a prison to marriage, because ain't nobody forcing you to get married. You know what I'm saying? Like you getting walked into that prison, not at your own free will. So, bruh, if you step in willingly, if you did a life sentence and you willingly went back to prison, I'm starting to question you more than I'm questioning the institution of marriage. That's one.
Okay.
And that's not shade. That's just me thinking, why the hell would you go do it again if it was so bad?
Okay.
Number two, I feel like if we were looking at marriage, which the people in the members area know, I am not interested in marriage. That's not something I've ever wanted. It's not something I have a dog in the fight for. So ain't no real emotion tied up into this for me. But I would think if people looked at marriage as a business arrangement, which I get that it is, because you have to go sign up and stay, get the legal documents. But most people don't go into marriages looking at it as a business. If people were truly looking at marriage as a business, then I would say absolutely that you should have to renew. But considering that this is an emotional decision made by two emotional human beings, no, like that's something you should have to do. I think instead, I love the idea of a mandatory prenup. I love that idea. Just like I love the idea, like Dr. Hawk said, of mandatory paternity tests. Like anything that clarifies stuff, I'm all for. But nobody's forcing anybody to propose, to say yes, to walk down the aisle, to get married. So this idea of having a quote unquote easy out, to me, defeats the whole purpose. Because to me, if you go into a marriage knowing that you have, I only got to deal with this for 3 years and then I can roll, what's the point? Why get married? Why not just forever date? Why not just commit without the document? Like, I just don't see how that benefits marriage in any way, to know that, okay, all I gotta do is hang in for 3 years. Now, Cindy, I think 20 years is wild. I think that's absolutely
That sounds like a life sentence.
because if I'm miserable, I ain't staying miserable. I ain't staying miserable for 20 years. I ain't doing that.
Because
But I'm just saying,
because
like,
the government said so.
knowing that, right? I just think knowing after, like, oh, I only got to hang in here for X number of years and it's free. You know, it just
Okay.
that none of that. If that's to me, if that's your views on marriage, don't get married. Why are you getting married?
Okay. So Mimi, I have a question for you then, because you made a good point that most people don't.
Sure.
Right. Most people don't view marriage as a business. Right. However,
Right.
the governing bodies conducts marriages like it's a business. When the marriages come to be and they fall apart. Right. Now, as someone who's an advocate for taxing everyone,
Absolutely.
hold on, because you breaking up, Mimi. You breaking up. Does that
Sorry.
idea?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you. I can hear you. It's just, for one, there's a delay, and then when you talk, it's a little bit of a breakup, but it's all good. What I'm saying though is,
okay,
since you can't be legally married without the governing body, and the governing body views it and treats it more like a business, wouldn't it be fair for the governing body to operate, to set forth rules and regulations like it is in terms of the renewal? Do you understand what I'm saying? God, she breaking up. Move your phone, Mimi.
Question completely, and I'm not in disagreement. The view is, so I'm sitting in my car. Maybe that's any better.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I guess the view I'm like, for the government, yeah, I see all the benefits in the world for the governing bodies. I'm not seeing any benefit for the couples, other than I can get out of this easy. And if getting out of it easy is such a big deal to you, why get in it in the first place? Just don't get married.
Well, okay, so
I just don't. I don't see the point of it.
I get that. I understand what you're saying, but what if it was like what if it was like 10 years?
Prenup. Why not get a prenup then? Prenups are the same. Prenups give you the same out. Prenups give you the same defining characteristics. If you do this, I get this, you do that. And prenups can be updated at any time during a marriage, as long as both parties are willing.
So so it sounds like you're saying, instead of a mandatory marriage license renewal, they should have mandatory prenups.
I don't believe in mandatory. But you know me, Marcello, I'm not very big on people telling me what I should and shouldn't do. So I'm not going to say mandatory. Optional, absolutely. I think it's all optional. And I think it comes down to the marrying parties being mature and realistic before venturing into something as major as marriage and children. Because to me, I think the person not being considered in all of this easy out is kids. Like, that sucks for kids.
Okay, so Mimi, my last point to you would be, I saw a reel and it kind of popped me open to a new way of thinking. And she's an attorney, she's a divorce attorney, and what she said was, everybody has a prenup. It's just the government has already established what's going to the government. Your prenup is the government will decide. That's your prenup, right?
That's why you should have your own, right?
Right. So you agree with Moreland then that before we get married, we should have to sit down and draw up our own prenuptial agreements outside of what the government defaults to. Is that
I'm
just
gonna I can't put the word should in there. That don't work for me.
okay?
Optional, then you and your partner should sit down and discuss that. And if both of you are on board with having one, then go for it. If you're both not on board with having one, then don't, because marriage is such a personal choice.
Okay,
It
so
is a
even
personal choice that you don't have to do.
I understand that, but we know how governments are. They oppress people, right? And they impose their will upon people. So to circumvent what you're saying, Mimi, what they would do is they would put a box and be like, default check. I don't want to draw up my own prenup. I'll follow whatever the state says if this thing comes to an end. Because that's what happens.
I mean, I was about to say, yeah, that's what happens now anyway.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So I don't see how having a renewal changes that.
I think having a renewal would change it because it gives people a set date and time to assess what it is that we're doing here, as opposed to like Moreland was saying, where you kind of have like an imaginary deadline does nothing for you, really, unless you're just completely self-driven. But an actual deadline does something for you. And if you have an actual deadline, then it forces people to assess, reassess, and figure out whether or not they really want to keep doing this thing, or if this is just my exit. Like, all right, dog, I'm out.
I guess the issue that I have with that, and maybe I'm the romantic at heart, but I feel like if you need to do that so often, every 3 years, if you have to sit down and reassess whether I want to be with this person, you shouldn't marry them in the first place.
Okay, so because what it sounds like is the 3-year thing. It sounds like you're responding to the 3-year thing, but I know you. But I know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be any number.
It would be any number.
Any number that you are mandated to sit down and review your relationship. I am all like, and I think this is one of the reasons I'm not all that big on marriage, because I don't think people go into marriages realistically. And I don't think having a renewal is going to change that. I think because to me, a renewal is the prenup. And if you're not thinking of a prenup going into it, you're not going to be thinking about the renewal going into it. You're going to fall into the fantasy that most people fall into, that we love each other so much that we're going to be together forever. And you're not going to be thinking about that renewal, and that date going to come and go unless one of the parties is unhappy. So I just don't see how it benefits anybody but the government.
What do you think about that, Moreland?
That's just me.
She said a lot.
Yeah.
I always do, bro.
Pick one.
Me saying comparing my marriage to incarceration, just being in jest. But
I know that. I do know that.
Nobody is going to enter into something that they don't necessarily want to do. And you did say that people aren't being forced to, but I kind of disagree a little bit, because there is a lot of weight, especially on men, when it comes to being in relationships for years and years and years, and they haven't proposed or whatever, what have you. When you have a woman that wants to be with a man, and she's like, "Hey, what are we doing? Are we just gonna be living like this? Or are we gonna get married? Like, what are we doing?" To me, that's almost like a pressure or a threat of this relationship's gonna come to an end unless we get married. So a lot of people are forced into marriage. And then I think, and when you're dating, if you're dating for a year or so, you get that representative. We all know that, right? And then the real person kind of shows up after things have settled in. That's usually around 3 years, because a lot of marriages, the divorce rate is somewhere around between 3 and 5 years. I'm going with this number 3. But the divorce rate is somewhere between 3 and 5 years. People start to check out. And then at that particular point, you kind of figure out, like, hey, I want to continue to do this. Or maybe we even say, look, you need some type of counseling or so to make the marriage grow. I did say earlier that it is an easy out. The easy out does put a crush on children. I think it would be devastating for people to be married for 3 years and then say, you know what, we're not going to stay married anymore. and then you kind of just go your separate ways and do your own thing. That definitely puts an impact on children because the stability of homes would definitely change. Because people just got the opportunity to be like, deuces, I'm out. I do feel like there is some governmental benefit in there, and that's just how it is. I mean, even with marriages, government benefits from that. There's supposed to be a separation of church and state, and it is until you decide to say you don't want to be married anymore, and then the state is all up in the church's business.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Interesting dialogue. Interesting. Casey got her hand up. Casey, what you got? Is Casey stuck? I thought Casey was typing the whole time. Casey, I think Casey's stuck. She stuck on your screen, Mimi? Yeah. Okay. Casey, if you could hear me, come back. Is Casey in here too? Nah, she's not in here. Somebody text Casey and let her know. If anybody got Casey number, text her and tell her that she's stuck. Pod, you say you can't get in? Why not? Check your email, Pod. Lil said on the flip side, though, it will prevent them from making a lot of children if they don't really want to be together. Because
can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
I think we are expecting a lot out of humans who already have the options and they're not using them. Like, what's going to be any different, right? Like, you have the option of a prenup, you don't take it. You have the option to not get married, you don't take it. You have the option to not have children, people don't take it. Go ahead.
I think because I understand what you're saying. You're right. I think that if you instituted, let's just look at it this way. If you instituted the mandatory marriage license renewal, eventually it will become part of the normal way of thinking about marriage. Whereas if right now it's not, right? The normal way of thinking about marriage right now is till death do us part. You see what I'm saying?
But the prenup is already is in action and nobody considers that the norm.
No, that's
right?
my point though. But the governments manipulate the actions of the citizens by imposing mandatory processes on those people, right? So nobody thinks about prenups because the government doesn't make you do it. Which maybe that shit's crazy, right? Like plenty of people don't think about eating healthy until DC says, yo, we're gonna put a sugar tax, right? And you find out that your Coke costs more than a bottle of water, right? And so there's that aspect to it, to retort to what you're saying in terms of affecting the actions and inactions of the people.
So I have a question. Sure. What happens if in 3 years I want to renew and my spouse doesn't, or vice versa? What happens then?
Then we go through the divorce procedures. You got to go before the judge, right? And he gets to decide, why are you trying to leave? Like why are you? Because everybody who goes to get a divorce doesn't get a divorce. For a very long time in the state of Maryland, you had to be physically separated for a year.
For 18 months.
Right. And if at any point in that year you had any type of contact, right? My daughter
started over.
Contact. Your year started over. We know y'all was trying to kill each other last week, but you humped 2 weeks before that. So see y'all in a year. You better move out. Don't take no late night movie call from a dog.
So you see the tricks with that.
Huh. But Mimi, you're basically saying that you don't see how it's any different because it has that, because
I don't.
Because people have the option to get out. I think what I'm
saying, and
you
have that option at any point in your marriage. You can sit down. I think where it comes down to me, and again, let's keep in mind that it's me and my age and the way I think. Yeah. To me, this is all about maturity between people. If you're a mature individual, you're gonna sit down and discuss your wants, desires, needs, all of that before you get married. If you're a mature individual, you're not gonna let somebody pressure you into marriage. If that's not what you want, walk the hell away, because that's not the person for you. I understand relations ending ain't fun, but being trapped in an institution of marriage ain't fun either, pun intended. And I just don't feel like it's going to make people be any more mature than the options they already have that they don't take.
Okay, I hear you. Go ahead, Mola. I know you got something.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, then I'm gonna go ahead and throw these weights around. But I think a lot of people are married to the idea of being married. The bell, the whistles, and the ceremony, the reception. It all looks nice, but marriage is real work. It is two people from sometimes different parts of the world, different ideologies, different upbringings, learning to become one. And that sometimes is as Mimi, I think
Yeah.
as she was saying, if you're not a mature individual, you're not going to be able to understand what it takes to become one. So it's easier to just say, all right, I'm out. I can't do this. This isn't going to work for me because I'm too selfish to sacrifice. Because a lot of people would rather win, than make it work. I got to be right. I got to win.
Right.
And then so you get into these battles and these arguments that don't bring forth any fruit in the marriage. It just causes a rift between two people. So I think it's the idea of marriage that people are like, let's do it. And then when they do it and they find out that it is a lot of work, and it is a lot of responsibility, and there's some financial responsibility, and there's kids and everything else involved, it just becomes very much different.
Okay, so Moreland, when you were saying that, and I'll let you go, the thought I was having is how, or the first question would be, should marriage be something that we as a society take seriously?
Yes.
Right. If it's something that we should take seriously, okay, so let's just say for the sake of conversation, yes, because if the answer is no, then we could just keep doing what we're doing. Cool.
Yes.
If the answer is yes, let's just, for the sake of conversation, say we all agree that marriage is something that should be taken seriously, even if it's because children come from marriages, right? Should then, and we have a society where the government is the governing body. The government decides whether or not you can get a marriage license, right? Should we then allow the government to institute processes to make sure that we are actually prepared to get married before we get married? Now, Moreland, the reason I'm having this thought is because me and you, we can't just be like, oh, I want to be a police officer, right? And go ruin people's lives and violate people's rights and potentially take lives, take people's freedom, tell other people what to do and all of that stuff without going through a filtering process, that which is actually the academy for us for 9 months at first. And then we have to go through recertification, right? Every year, right? So would we be, could I say that we are advocates for giving the government the right, or maybe we say the government or the church, right? Since this is like the two parties that are kind of dictating this thing, the right to set up some type of marriage training or academy that you have to go through before you can actually legally be married.
And I would say that is what I was getting ready to type in the comments. I would be more for a preemptive strike than a get out of jail free card.
I'm sick of your ass, nigga. You gotta get the fuck out of here. Telling you 3 years, I'm leaving your ass. Because I don't want to pay the divorce fee. I don't want to pay no lawyer. I ain't paying no lawyers. More before you go, what do you think? Do you think that like premarital, how would you word that, Mimi? Mandatory premarital training. Would you be an advocate?
Or even premarital certification. You got to certify before you get married.
Are you certified to be a husband?
And then you might have to go do, like your continuing education courses might come every year.
But that's the research, though. That's the research. That's the. All right. So, Moreland, are you for the mandatory premarital academy?
This person is CEU's husband certified, and he gets like a blue Twitter check or whatever.
Yeah.
He's good to go. But then the pool of applicants becomes smaller. So somebody that's extremely selective may not find what they're looking for based off of what's certified. They might want to be with somebody who's not certified.
Okay.
And then,
okay, but okay. Huh. So, but that's kind of cool though, because then you could be like, I want a certified woman. I want a certified man. If you ain't got your blue check, I ain't rocking with you.
Exactly. So you can see how the day party conversation gonna go. It's like, is you certified? No.
I didn't see your blue card. I got my blue card. Okay. All right, cool. So Marlon, if you got a role, that's cool. Let me know.
That's a deep thought. I mean, like this conversation could probably go on and spiral and spider web into so many different areas, but marriage should be taken seriously. I do think people need to have some type of training or something, like people who like people who go for bankruptcy, right? There's a class that they have to take. People who want to get married, like there should be a class that you have to take. Just like driving, you got to take a class in order to drive. So in order to be married, there should be a class that you have to take, and you have to understand what that means. And it should not just be something that the state teaches. It should be a cooperative thing between the state and the church, where you understand, like non-denominational, but you can understand like there is some significance, higher authority impact into what you're doing in terms of a marriage. And there's some fiscal and some other responsibilities that happen, especially for men, because you're the leader of said family, and so you bear a lot of the responsibilities, and you shouldn't be having an easy way out. You should want to process what you're doing and building with this individual. And it's going to take more than 3 years, but if you are willing to put the work in, and I think the prenup would just lessen the fear of what happens if you're going into a marriage worrying about what could happen. It's not really going to be good for the marriage. I'm on my second marriage, and I don't have a prenup. I'm just like, I know who my wife is. I know what I am and what I got to bring to the table. I know what she brings to the table, and we just make it work.
Okay, beautiful. I appreciate you, my brother. Good stuff. Enjoy the weights. I'll let you know if I need that sick leave. All right, so we having a conversation about whether or not marriage licenses should have a renewal period, right? Whether that's 3 years, Moreland said 3 years, Cindy said 20 to 25, and then we've also kind of delved into whether or not there should be mandatory premarital training. Casey, I sent you the request on Instagram if you want to come up there, because I know you were having problems with your Zoom. So before we continue on with the conversation, we got Dr. E in here too. Certified psychotherapist and counselor and all of that good stuff. But before we move on to anybody else's comments, my show today is brought to you by my Unleash the Beast 1 hour one-on-one session for $99 special. So if you're in the Zoom and you've thought about having a one-on-one sit down with me in a life coaching arena, click the link. It's right there for you. It goes from this coming Wednesday out to May 3rd. Those are the dates. I have 3 times for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and 2 times for Tuesdays and Thursdays. Limited slots are available. I'm limiting it to 50 slots. Y'all can hear about it first. I haven't posted it anywhere else. You're just hearing it through my word of mouth right here, right now. If you're on Instagram, same thing applies, except for you would type Beast in the comments, and I'll auto DM you the link, and you can process it right from the link. As soon as I get it, I'll approve it, and you'll be on my calendar. $99 is 66% off. We got Casey, who's been bouncing back and forth between Zoom and Instagram, and who knows where she's been in between the digital realms, who had her hand up. So we're gonna go Casey, and then I'm gonna get Dr. E's opinion, because Dr. E said something about having to get some type of training for being a parent before you maybe have kids or get married too. So Casey, and then Pod put his hand up too. So we're gonna go Casey, and then Pod, and then Dr. E. Casey, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I don't know if I need to say anything at all, or if something I really do need to say, all the technical difficulties. But I was gonna say that I do think that a mandatory review of some sort would make people be more mindful, I think, before getting into marriage. I don't know if it's gonna necessarily keep marriages together longer. But I do think that if something were in place then people would then make a different decision if they knew that if their performance or their or how they show up in the marriage is going to be evaluated, right, after a certain period of time. I think, and again, let me disclaimer, I've never been married before, but I think sometimes people get very comfortable, and so they take a lot of things for granted. And while you should be in a constant state of evaluating how you're showing up for your spouse, how your spouse is showing up for you, um, from conversations I've heard from people in my close circle, both family and friends who are married, that is not a regular conversation that most married couples have, right? Sitting down and assessing with one another, well, how am I as a husband this last year? How am I as a wife this last year? Most couples that I know aren't doing that. And so if you knew that there was a point in time where that had to occur, in order for you to stay in this marriage or exit the marriage, then maybe on the front end, it gives people a little more reverence for it, and possibly will have them think a little more critically about whether or not they want to be involved in this, if they know that there's going to come a point in time where someone's going to have to say if this is working for me or not. And we know that happens anyway, right? I mean, it's kind of how divorce happens. One person is not feeling fulfilled or feeling taken advantage of, or numerous reasons as to why marriages end. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think that I wish more folks would have the unsexy conversations. Someone had mentioned, about people getting married off of emotion, and that does happen a lot. My grandmother used to tell us all the time, love should be secondary. And when we were growing up, it was like, that sounds so, like, we had this
Oh, yeah.
romanticized idea of marriage from reading novels and watching TV and 90s R&B love videos and, the whole nine. And so when she told us love should be secondary, it was like, lady, you tripping. But the older I get, the more I'm like, there's a lot of grown people who have not asked their partners before they got married, well, what is your parenting style? Or, if one of our aging parents were to get ill, are we cool with somebody moving in the house with us, right? Because those conversations are not sexy. And so you feel like it's going to kill the vibe, kill the mood. And then life is going to hit you. And now you're married and you have to make those very real decisions, and nobody's had that conversation before, and that may have been the difference between you being betrothed to this person for the rest of your life. So I think maybe if there was some, for lack of a better term, more of a business mind attached to making the decision, in addition to the affection that you feel, then, maybe we would see marriages taken more seriously and would stay together longer because you would enter it into it for the long haul.
Okay. I got you on that. I was just thinking about how would it feel to give the government more, I don't know if the word is power, maybe power, for lack of a better term that I can come up with, power.
Yeah, well,
Over, you know what I'm saying? I'm a freedom guy, so that's why I'm kind of thinking like,
yeah, I'm not for government having any more control over my life. I'm trying to figure out how to make sure that they lessen the control they got. So, I mean, on that aspect of it, yeah. So for me, people like to dump things in one category, and life is about apples and oranges and grapes and kiwi, right? Like it's gonna be different things. Nothing's gonna fit in one box. So to say, well, they shouldn't have to give me a license to drive, I kind of agree with that, right? No, I want to make sure that you at least took the time to not put, even if you drive crazy and you don't care about your life, I'm glad somebody thought enough about the other people on the road to say, at least I can say they read a manual, hopefully, and they know that red means stop, right? So, I mean, I think there's some things that do require some interference for the greater good. But I think when it comes to matters of individual decision, around your life, who you lay down with, who you choose not to, right? Like those types of things. I don't think that philosophically, I don't believe that they should be able to have a say in that,
Right.
because the marriage certificate really is about tax benefit, right? Like if we think about it, like our ancestors jumped the broom, they didn't have any paper, right? When we think about tribes in Africa and different places we came from, they didn't have a piece of paper, and those marriages were acknowledged as real. So for us and in other, developed countries, that certificate is about a tax code, and it's about if this thing dissolves, because it's not just the two people who walk away with money or not. The government's going to get their piece too, right? Because their fees and attorneys, like it's a whole racket.
Right.
So, in a sense, but here's the other side of it, right? So, I'm a both and kind of girl. I do want to make sure that because of our current structure, that if I've spent my life with you, I want to make sure I have something that protects my ability to make decisions for you medically, the end of your life, those types of things. And unfortunately, right now in our current structure, a marriage license gives you the easiest path forward to not make a challenging situation even more hard. So, for me, that would be the only reason why I would agree with the license, is that I don't want to have to fight with somebody about why I have the right to tell you this treatment or not this treatment or whatnot. But outside of that, I really don't think that a piece of paper is gonna make you love somebody or not, or stay committed or not.
Okay. Got you. Pod, what you got? Do you think the governing body should mandate what the fuck? Mandate 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 that married couples should have to renew their marriage licenses every whatever amount of years?
No, no. I came in, I was tripping while I couldn't get in, so I didn't know what's the gist of the conversation. But that's what we're talking about, marriage or how to.
Would you be for or against a marriage license renewal process? So where like you could pick whatever amount of time that, if the answer is no, then the answer is no. If the answer is yes, I would wonder like, okay, what's the time framing? How do you think that plays out in society as a whole? How does that affect anything?
I'm gonna say no. It's bad enough they get their hands in everything a little bit, and then the concepts of government supposed to be biblically, they took it the other direction. So no. Even dealing with marriage, time limit, it's a year before they're supposed to get married. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to court, you're supposed to get your family together, have family functions, and learn each other families how they do it back in the day. So it's a lot of things that took it out. They just went away with it. So, um, I was hearing people talking about how people try to supposed to love that person and stuff like that. This is one of my wheelhouses when I talk about marriage or being a husband or wife. If you don't know how to love yourself first, you ain't ready for the responsibility of another person, even with kids. Um, I could say even pets somewhere, but if you don't know what I'm saying, that's the thing. We have to understand that marriage and raising kids, I heard about raising kids. Kids is a real responsibility. It's a selfless responsibility. So if you're selfish, which is okay, I believe that you should be not in them lanes like that. Put yourself in them lanes and take care of responsibilities like that.
Okay,
Because
let me ask you this, Pop. Would
Mhm.
you be okay with the government mandating that you have to go through some type of certification process in order to get married, or some type of like premarital training that you have to go through?
I won't be bad about it. The
You'd
thing
be
is,
okay with it?
no, I'll be careful because honestly, that's what it's supposed to. That's what foundation of marriage supposed to be in first. Like I said, back in the day, you court the person, or when there's arranged marriage, they took a year for them to get to know each other. They have family functions. They don't see each other but only when the families got together. So it as we evolved from apes to dumb apes, and they took certain things out. You know what I'm saying? They took certain things out that's structurally God structure. It took the foundation of how you're supposed to prepare for things. You know what I'm saying? Even with our animals and how it's just a lot we took out as mankind. But no, I wouldn't mind. That's what we need, because this we can show you where you at in your mindset as a man. Are you prepared to be that husband, to be working, take care of your family? Are you prepared to be selfless? That's what can't stay away from that. Are you prepared to be selfless? Think about somebody else besides yourself, which is okay if you want to be selfish. That's your right. But when you come to a union, a vow, even in business, you can't be selfish. So what I'm saying, so you have to think about others than yourself when you take these kind of commitments.
Okay, I got you. So you don't want the mandatory research, but you're okay with some type of mandatory preliminary training that is in place.
Yeah, because would you give a rookie cop a gun if you don't know how to shoot it and put him on a beat with you?
Well, that's what I was saying, that before you become a rookie cop, you're what they call a what is the word?
A cadet?
You could use the word cadet. We don't use cadet, right? You're a recruit.
A recruit, okay.
A recruit. So you go through the academy training to learn
Uh-huh.
how to use the weapon, to learn about people's constitutional rights, to learn about use of force, to learn about Terry versus Ohio and the different case laws that are applicable to law enforcement. And you learn how to testify in a trial and all of these things that they teach you, so that by the time you hit the street, obviously you're a rookie and there's going to be certain things you don't know in terms of, on the street. But
Right.
in terms of procedurally, ideally, the first day you hit the street, you should know the processes. You should know whether or not you have the right to go in this person's pockets or not.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
The
Or
foundation.
how to operate your firearm, or
Right.
and all of that stuff. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, foundation. Because some people, when they get it in a relationship, they'll know the foundation. One part of the foundation in a relationship is communication. That's what kids, school, business. You sit down at the table and communicate what is our plan, our goal. You know what I'm saying? What's the lesson? You know what I'm saying? That people go just head first into marriage, and they don't know what to do.
What's up, Champagne? What's happening? All right, I hear you. I hear you. Dr. E, you there? You. What's good? You got to unmute.
Yo,
What's happening?
I am Chels
How you
X.
been, man? What's going on?
Oh man, I'm good, man. I was happy I was able to get on here for a quick minute, man, in the middle of all of everything I got cooking.
Yeah, we appreciate you. We appreciate you.
What's going on,
So
family?
everybody good. Everybody good. So we're having a conversation about marriage license renewal. So if the government came out and said, well, listen, from now on, anybody who gets married, you got to renew your marriage license. And my man Moreland said 3 years. Casey said, I mean, not Casey, Cindy said 20 to 25. I've heard, think maybe 7 to 10 thrown out. What would be your opinion on that?
I guess I need more context. I had put something in the chat earlier because when I came in, I just heard something about the government being involved. And, my thing is government, they're going to be involved. They need to be involved with everything and regulate babies. Like everybody out here popping up babies willy-nilly with no responsibility, no understanding of what they're supposed to be doing. And they're going to regulate. But as far as marriages go with the renewal, it's interesting because what would it look like? Like if you, like, I got to go renew this year for my driver's license and I got to take an eye exam. If I don't pass the eye exam, I don't get my license. So if you're up for renewal for your marriage license and you don't pass for whatever reason, what happens? You lose your marriage?
You lose your marriage. You're not married no more.
Huh. Interesting. So
Like, what you think?
that would be a way for people to get out
It
without
would be it would be a way for people to get out.
Huh. Interesting. I like the idea of having to go through a training. Of course, I've premarital course for people. The renewal piece, I think, would have to be kind of teased out to see how that would look. But I do like the idea of like a review, maybe having to go back through the course that you went through to get your marriage license, having to continue like continuing education, is having to continuing to recertify in that sense, like having to go through some training and go through some things, maybe go do a marriage retreat or something. It could look a number of different ways, but I like the idea of continuing to a structure that requires you to continue to work on your marriage. Absolutely.
Okay. But in terms of a continuing education or maybe even mandatory premarital counseling or training, you're on board with that. In terms of the renewal process, you're out on that. But
I just would need to know what that would look like. You know what I mean? Like I
I don't know.
don't.
So like let's say Dr. E is the dictator, right? Dr. E's this is Dr. Evans' country. We're all stuck in it. We can't leave. And you say, you know what? And I'm your advisor, and I'm like, you know what, these motherfuckers, this is what they need, right?
Right.
I say they need a mandatory marriage license renewal for whatever reason, right? Something's going on. We should institute this renewal. And you say, you know what? I'm interested. I'm going to come up with something. What would yours look like? Just work through it in real time. If it has holes, so what? Big deal. We just having a
Yeah.
conversation.
I don't like the idea of, okay, you after 3 years you come to the table, see how your marriage is doing, and then we're going to dissolve this marriage if it's not working. Like we deem that, what, y'all not working out, we're going to dissolve this. I think there's too much involved with that. But I do like the idea of after 3 years you guys come back and you're going to be a part of this cohort, maybe the same 3 years ago, you were a part of a cohort of people who came through, and you went through some training, and you're going to have to go to maybe a marriage retreat, and you're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to put in some work, do some real work, and after that, we recertify you, so to speak, kind of like a refresher.
I think because I mean that doesn't sound that bad, but like let's say I go for research, me and Lil go for research, and the governing dictator, Dr. E's like, y'all suck. Right? You still get to dissolve the marriage legally if you want to, which still kind of keeps us in the realm of renewal. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think what we could do is we can make suggestions to say, hey, you guys may want to think about rethinking this thing, because throughout the marriage, people can get a divorce anytime they want. So before the pre-certification or the recertification, if they want to get a divorce, they can. But now they come before us and we're evaluating everything and we're letting them know, okay, it doesn't look good. Have you guys thought about, what a divorce would look like? Maybe we help them walk through what they want to do. But to mandate that they get a divorce, I wouldn't.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think it would be like a kind of how politics work. Like you could do nothing and cause an action. You can do nothing and cause an outcome, right? So you can't, even if the government can say, like the government can say to you, you go to renew your license. They can say, well, the way they would frame it is, we're not giving you your driving privileges. We're not taking anything away from you. You see what I'm saying? So it would still be, they would still have the power to dictate whether or not you're still married or not. But I was thinking of it more so just in terms of how would it affect people? How would it affect marriages, right? Because I mean, like.
Well, here's one thing real quick while I'm thinking about it. One thing that may encourage people to put in the work is after 3 years, we're going to do this recertification. And if we deem that you need to be divorced, anything that you've acquired goes back to the government. Y'all don't keep it.
Yeah. So yeah. That makes sense. So like, because I'm thinking be like the 360 thing,
people
right?
Be like, man, I gotta stay married.
Right. I was thinking of like, okay, so how could anything that we're discussing be beneficial? And the one that popped in my mind, and maybe it has holes, maybe it doesn't, is like if someone were in an abusive relationship and they were kind of like trying to figure out like how to leave or how to get out of it, and they feel trapped, and it's like, well, you know, my 3-year joint coming up in 6 months. That's an automatic. I can go to the court. You okay, Mimi? Mimi jump. I'll say you strapped. You pro 2A, you got your 2A?
My godson just crept up on me, man, and scared the crap out of me. I'm good.
Okay, see, that's why I stay strapped.
Sorry.
You never know who's lurking in the dark.
Hey,
I'm
Sis, what about a marriage boot camp before you even get
Whatever.
married?
I mean, so I'm not, I don't think I've given my opinion on it really. I'm just asking the questions. I don't think I'm against some type of mandated education about what marriage is and what divorce is and the consequences and repercussions of both, so that, because like I was saying to Mimi, right? Regardless of whether or not we get married based on our emotions, the government goes about it as if it's a contract and it's a business, right? And in a lot of ways, when it comes to business, the government makes sure that you have certain paperwork in order, that you understand certain things. At bare minimum, you have the paperwork that you're supposed to read to understand the ramifications if you do or don't do something. So I don't necessarily have a problem with them saying, hey, listen, if this is what y'all want to do, that's cool. Y'all consenting adults, y'all want to be together, cool. You need to understand that these are the expectations in marriage and in divorce. I don't have a problem with that, because all that really does is inform people of what it is that they're getting into. Right? Like, okay, so like Maryland, the state of Maryland is a what do they call it? Like communal property state. So you could get married in the state of Maryland. You could own 20 houses before you get married. And the moment you get married, your spouse owns half of it. But if you don't, you might not know that. You like, ignorance is not an excuse. Right? Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. But should people have the right to know what it is that they're getting into, I'd be okay with that. So when I sign this, I understand this is what it is. So if
you
that's
getting any feedback that people didn't agree with it? Do people not agree with it?
I don't think anybody disagreed. It's kind of an open-ended type of thing. I don't think anybody gave any, like, I think what people disagree on is the different nuances of how you would institute it into society, as opposed to just saying a hard yes or a hard no. Pot says no, but he's not against the premarital training. Cindy, what's not right?
The fact that I had this established before the marriage.
Well, the state of Maryland says that when you get married, everything is split down the middle in terms of property.
Yeah, and that's where I would kind of contest it, because if I had this established before the marriage, I think everything from the license date moving forward should matter, not the date and backwards. So that's my perception of that.
Right. So that's why you have the option for a prenup, which is what Mimi and I were discussing, right? Like I said, I saw a reel. I thought the reel was brilliant. The lady was like, the average person doesn't think they need a prenup. She's like, the average married person doesn't think they have a prenup. She said, everybody has a prenup. Your prenup, if you don't have your own prenup, you have the prenup that the government is going to lay out for you when you get divorced, which you may or may not like. So it's advantageous for people to get their own, that because if you don't get your own, the government's going to do it for you.
Right.
So, but like I said, in the state of Maryland, it's communal property. So it doesn't matter if you was LeBron James and you worth $1 billion and then you get married to somebody who has nothing, and y'all by law, the state of Maryland is going to be like, all right, well, here go your 500 million, here go your 500 million, in theory.
Yeah. Oh, that just gave me an idea about that movie with Janet Jackson, and she's divorcing her husband, and her husband was being greedy and wanted her sales from her book sales, but that had nothing to do with their marriage or whatever. So that just popped into my head. So yeah, that kind of makes sense now.
Yeah. The other thing that came up too was mandatory paternity tests. I think it should be an option. I think everybody should have the option. I think whoever wants to exercise that option should pay for it. I don't think the government should have the right to force someone to give the government a tube of their blood when they haven't committed a crime and there's no subpoena or anything like that. So I don't think the government should say, oh, well, here's a baby and you have to give us your blood. I think it should be optional, which, Mimi, this is similar to what you're saying. It is optional, right? You can go to the court. She says it's your baby, because we all know it's hers, right? This is all about the guys. And I had a debate with somebody else on Instagram a long time ago about this, and I was in a dogfight. It was me against everybody, and they were all saying, yo, there should be mandatory paternity tests. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't have anything mandatory where the government says, we get to take your spit or your blood. My body, my choice. And I was dogfighting with these people. And then I came to the realization that their argument was based on men being tricked, right, or lied to. And if we institute this on everybody, then women can no longer lie, right, about who the father is. Or women can lie, but men have a pathway. All men have a pathway to finding out whether or not this is their child. And I said, well, all men do have a pathway. All you have to do is petition the court, right? So why should I, who don't want to give the government a tube of my blood, be forced to give the government a tube of my blood because you're trying to figure out if you're having a baby, right? And
Yeah, I
then,
hadn't thought about the DNA part of it. You're
right?
right about that.
And
I
then to
agree.
go further, to further my point, you want this to be a government-run program. So what you want me to do is pay my taxes for you to figure out whether or not this is your baby. I didn't take part in the fun. Why am I finding out if this is your baby? I don't care whether this is your baby or not. Pay for it. So I'd love to hear y'all thoughts on that. Look at Big T. Hi, Big T.
Well, I don't think people should be willy-nilly having babies.
But since they are,
That could be regulated. What you think about that?
I don't think you can regulate that.
Oh yeah.
I think in order to regulate that, you have to give the government so much power that we would all, like, certain things are good in theory until you realize that human beings are going to be the ones deciding this, right? And what is it called? There's a word for it. What is it called when you intentionally what is the word? Eugenics? Is it eugenics? Like, this is what I'm saying. Imagine you end up with a governing body that hates Black people. Right?
We have that.
Huh? Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they say
Genocide.
no, well, genocide, it is a genocide, right? But that's not the word out. There's a specific word for when eugenics. It's eugenics, right? For lack of a better definition, it's the intentional killing or stoppage of a particular group of people from reproducing.
Yeah, it's the reproduction piece of it is what makes it eugenics and not genocide. Genocide is the killing of or removal of through violence, and eugenics is more through reproduction.
Right. And so what I'm saying is if you give the government, well, first of all, I don't really trust governments, you know what I'm saying? Not to that degree. If you give them the right to say who can and can't have a baby, then who's to say that your governing body isn't going to use that to their advantage, not necessarily to the people's advantage?
So what's the difference between that and allowing them to decide whether you can get married?
I mean, it's a personal choice.
So is having a baby.
For the woman.
The man is involved. He choosing to
Men
go.
Men have a choice pre, right?
But the government can stop him from being able to produce too. So at birth, certain things can take place where neither the man or the woman can reproduce until you pass a test. You got to go through a whole training. You got to go through all of this, get certified, then you can have a baby.
But okay, but would we be okay if we gave the governing body that power and then they use that power against a specific group of people? Because we know that these things happen. You see what I'm saying? So, and just on a lighter note, I'm like, man, you know, people just gonna do what they do and then pop out babies, and that's just gonna be it.
You gonna find a way to get around it?
Of course they are. You know what I'm saying? That of course they are. But let me ask you this. I got one more question for Dr. E, Cindy, then I got you. Let's just say that we had a government. Did Dr. E say? Okay. Let's say we had a government that we all got together and we all trusted. This is all people. This is all us. We the government, right? We all trust each other here. We have our disagreements, but we trust each other. And we decide, okay, we are going to institute something that says you have to go through A, B, you got to jump through these hoops to have a baby. How does that benefit it? What are the benefits of that and what are the detriments of that?
What are the benefits of regulating whether or not people are irresponsibly having babies?
Yeah, what are the benefits?
It changes the game as far as, like you said, we're paying for people to raise babies. We're paying for all that stuff that the government provides to people that have babies. It's people that's living off the government right now, 6, 7 babies. We paying for that.
Right.
So we can save a whole lot of money by not letting people just have willy-nilly babies.
Okay. Is there any detriment to it? Assuming that the government, we all good. It's us here. All 12 of us here in the Zoom, we the government.
The detriment, you're saying if the government was doing what it was supposed to do and being fair, and everybody,
yeah, like we all fair. We not trying to ethnic cleanse nobody. You know, we're not trying to shortchange nobody. Like if you legit, he legit, she legit. Everybody that's legit outside of race, creed, color, sexual orientation, all of that, you all good. You can have your baby.
I don't see it down to it, honestly.
Okay. Does anybody else see a down? Does anyone else see a positive to it? Well, does anyone agree with the positive?
I agree with the positive. You know, back to your body, your choice, right? But I do understand Dr. E's point, and I hold very similar kind of thoughts when having these conversations. Because I believe, barring some extenuating circumstances that people can't control, you're pregnant because you want to be. Right? Like by the time you get to a certain age, you know how to get pregnant. You also know how to prevent getting pregnant. Again, barring extenuating circumstances, right? So the idea that you are of sound mind and you know what actions result in pregnancy, you should be held responsible at a higher level in bringing forth this new life that ultimately somebody else may have to take care of. Now, that's not to say that people don't need support and help, but let's be honest, some folks are having babies because they know there's an out on the other end. Once it gets here, somebody's going to take care of it, right? And so folks don't always stop to say, well, let me prevent this from happening before I'm ready to absolve all of the responsibility. And I'll just say I came to that conclusion just even with personal stuff in my family with my cousin. You know, you had the first one, okay, life happens. You had the second one, like, now you know how the first one got here, but we're gonna work with you. Now you had the third and the fourth, and now you're looking at us mad because the third and the fourth are not getting what the first and the second guy. Look, we done. Like, we didn't lay down with you. You knew exactly what you needed to do. And for you to have some sense of entitlement that we're supposed to take care of this child that you and this man laid down to make, that's not our concern. Now, we wish them the best, but it don't move me to call to ask me for nothing for them. Right? And that may sound cruel and heartless, but you are an able-bodied grown person who made this choice over and over again because you know somewhere down the line, somebody, be it family or the government, is going to make sure you have a roof over your head, you have food to eat, you have insurance, and that's not fair to everyone else who makes a conscious choice about whether or not they can handle that responsibility. So I agree. I think after a certain age, you got this baby because you want it. You know how to keep it from getting here.
Okay.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Last week I was meeting with one of my clients, and she's a school teacher. She teaches this elementary school. I can't remember the exact grade of these children. She was asking them, what do y'all want to be when you grow up? And this is a true story. Two of the girls said, I want to be a baby mother. And she was like confused, like, what do you mean? You want to be a what? Why would you want to be that? Well, I get to get money for having babies. They were able to articulate why they wanted to be a baby mother. Completely ridiculous. Now I did think of a con though. I did think of a con.
What's the con?
One of the things that regulates young people having sex is the fear of having a baby. Now, if you don't have that fear, then I think maybe STDs rise. You know, whole lot of more reckless than it already is. It's gonna get more reckless than it already is. But man, that idea blew me away when she said these two girls said they wanted to be a baby mother.
Yeah, that's a conundrum because we care about kids, right? Because the simple solution is if you have a baby, it's on you, right? We're not paying taxes to take care of your kids. But it's difficult in a society like we have to just be like, oh, well, you're short. So, Cindy, what you got?
Well, I think that they should regulate men on having babies and stuff like that, because that's believe it or not, the courts already got our uteruses under their power. So why not make it mandatory that men get fixed? They get their stuff snipped.
I think that's a false equivalent.
Right. So it prevents men from getting women pregnant. So they can.
I think that what I'm saying is that I think that's a false equivalent, right? Which is
Right.
so, and this is my understanding of the Supreme Court ruling, right? The Supreme Court didn't rule that women can't have an abortion.
Yes, they did. It's
No, they
mandatory.
didn't. No, they didn't. That's not what they ruled. The Supreme Court basically ruled that as opposed to there being a federal law mandating that the states allow women to have an abortion, the Supreme Court ruled that the states themselves can decide what the state's laws on abortion will be. That's why in California, matter of fact, I'll give you one better. That's why in Maryland and DC, you can have an abortion up until the very moment the baby's born, right? And in other states, you have to get it done within the first 12 to 16 weeks. So
right.
the idea that women no longer, like abortion has been completely outlawed, that's false, right? Now, the reason I say it's a false equivalent is because if you were to say that we're going to give the government the power or the states the power to dictate that men have to get a surgical procedure, that's not the same as saying that you're limited or can't get an abortion.
Well, I don't know. I think that they could. But
The equivalent would be if the government said all women, all non-married women have to take birth control. But that's not the ruling.
right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, the equivalent would be all non-married women have to get a hysterectomy because a vasectomy is you can't be reversed.
Dr. E, can a vasectomy be reversed?
Yes, it can.
Yeah, it can be reversed. So
it can? Okay.
The equivalent would be like women having to get their tubes tied and maybe untied.
Oh, yeah,
So
okay, yeah.
mandating that.
It can actually grow back. It can actually grow back
On its own.
Oh.
Right,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about from a medical, from like you go to the doctor type thing. And so
is it a tubes tied or they have to get their tubes tied and then they'll go back and get them untied?
They
Right.
Yes,
can
you can
search
get
a
them
baby.
untied.
Okay. Okay.
Right,
Yeah,
right. The equivalent,
that's the same.
the equivalent argument of men, the equivalent argument would be men should have to get a vasectomy and women have to get their tubes tied because a vasectomy is reversible and you can get your tubes, I guess, untied. That's the equivalent.
Right.
Right. So if the government can dictate or the states can dictate what women do with their bodies, they should be able to dictate what men do to prevent um men raping women and getting them pregnant and then they're stuck with the baby and blah blah
They
blah blah
do.
blah.
But Cindy, they do regulate that.
There are laws.
Oh,
That's why rape
Yeah,
is
there are
against the law.
laws.
They have laws, right? And the same way men can break the law. If there's a law that says you can't, you use the R word, fuck. If you use, let's say a man SAs a woman, there's a law that says you can't do that. And if we find you guilty of doing that, then you get this particular punishment, right? That's what the law is in all 50 states, right? So if you have a state that says abortion is completely against the law, in order for that to be even similar, you would have to align some punishment with a woman who chooses to do so. At the end of the day, men and women just it's different. What you got, Mimi? Mimi, is your hand up?
I understand, and I agree with you completely. You're right, but I do understand where Cindy is coming from, and I do understand the concern of I would want to know what that regulation is going to look like as well, because in 99 out of 100 cases, the regulation is against the woman and the woman's body, and forcing her to make a choice regarding her body, while the man's body is not under the same scrutiny or objectification. So I get where Cindy's coming from, but I hear you, and what you're saying is correct about what the actual laws and decisions are.
Yeah.
I think Cindy's coming from that place though of here we go again, we would be looking at something that restricts the woman and not necessarily the man, when in fact it's the man that can do the most impregnating. A woman can only get pregnant once, and she's pregnant for 9 months. So in that 9-month period, she gets pregnant once. A man can impregnate 100 women in 9 months. So I think what she's getting at is, what would that regulation look like? I think that's the question.
Right. I think
she's making a little bit of an assumption about what it would look like. But my question would be, what would that regulation look like?
I think the regulation on men's is more on their assets. Right? You have a baby. Most of the people who pay child support are men, right? Because like at the end of the day, we're not going to get an equal outcome because men and women aren't equal. We don't do the same things. So it's a lot more difficult to regulate, say, a man's body than a woman's body. And we could just say everybody do whatever the hell you want to do, right? That's an option too. And that's a false equivalent too. But men's money is regulated at an excessive rate in comparison to women's money. Whereas if women's bodies are regulated at an excessive rate in comparison to men, we don't have to like it, but that's what plays out in society.
I don't know how I feel about that. I would have to give that some thought, because I feel like, yes, your money may be regulated, but then you're not forced custody either. Like if you don't want to pay the money, you do have an option of fighting for custody. So you have options, whereas when it comes to telling a woman she must carry a baby to term once pregnant, it becomes different. So, but no, I hear you. That's just something I would have to think through in my head.
Yeah, I don't think that there's ever going to be a point where you find like equal regulation and equal landing on both sides because of the differences in the way that men and women's bodies work, right? He who has the gift has the curse. That's kind of the way it works, right? If you are the one that gets the spoils of carrying the baby, then you're the one who gets the curse of the legislation behind it, right? If you are the one who makes most of the money based on the way society is set up and the choices that different people make, that's the gift, right? The curse of that is when it's time to split that money, you're going to be coming up off more most of the time. And we may not like that that's the way it is, but that's the way society has unfolded.
If men and women, if boys and girls were regulated from the jump street, it would eliminate all of the lopsidedness, because all that abortion talk, all that stuff is out the window. Because you got to actually go through a whole process to have a baby.
So, but how is that different, right? So how is that different? It's at its core, how is that different than taking away someone's choice?
I don't think it's different. I think it is taking away a choice.
Okay. Who's Zoom? Mimi, is that you coming back, or is that Tori? Who's Zoom user? Mimi always pops up as Mimi. I like to know who my people are. That's okay. Let's see. Oh, it's Tori. Okay. I was getting ready to name you the Riddler. So does anybody else have anything they want to add on anything that we've discussed today before we sign off for today? I think today was a good conversation. I enjoyed it. No, nobody has anything. Doctor, you give me a good closing word from the good doctor.
One of the things I'm doing right now is reading. The Bible app has plans that you can follow, and I'm following this plan that would take you through the whole Bible in a year. And I'm really enjoying it because it's also has these video devotionals by something called the Bible Project. It's these two guys, and it's a nonprofit, and they putting together these videos to help explain the Bible. So it's really, really good, because if you just read the Bible without any assistance, it would be like, I'm talking about the most ratchet thing, the most ratchet thing you can read. You don't got to go to no 50 Shades of Grey or whatever the most craziest reality TV shows, it beats it. But having something to explain what you're reading is really good. But what I'm learning is, from the beginning of time, man, self-discipline has been the #1 challenge for human beings.
Mm-hmm.
From the beginning of time, it's been our #1 challenge. And if we could just, corrupt and just backstabbing, just everything has always been from the beginning of time. If we could just learn how to master our emotions and master our urges, it would be outstanding, man. The world that we live in would be so much better. But I just encourage people to become their best selves, man. Become your best self. Hey, what's up, Doc? Work on becoming your best self. I think I'm probably preaching to the choir. Your audience, man, you got a really good audience. Everybody here is really, really just self-aware and just trying to be better. So, but I think this is a small percentage of the people that's just in the world, man.
Yeah.
We need to spread this, man. We need to get this out there.
Yeah, I think to err is to be human. To be human is to err, right? I think that's why the Bible starts off the way it does. Like, soon as I create these Bammers, you know what I'm saying? Like, they effing up off the rip. Then their kids effing up, right?
Man,
I think that's just what it is to be human. I think that's the fun part of the human experience. Is transcending that, right? And learning from the mistakes and stuff like that. So It's all good. Keisha, I like your shirt. Keisha saw my reel this morning and put her Take Your Power Back shirt on.
I saw your reel and was like, oh, wow, we put on the same shirt.
But that's the old reel. My beard was a little bit shorter back then. I'm growing my joint out. So yeah, it was something else I wanted to ask, but
your beard's still short.
Huh?
So your beard is still short.
I said it was shorter.
No, it's the same. It's the same. It's still the same. Ain't nothing changed.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
This is for the full beard. You know, I gotta send you because I got a full beard.
I know. But I'm getting there. I'm taking my vitamins and all of that good stuff so they can grow out. And I can have the good Arabian beard. The log joint. I could have it way down here and I could just comb it and brush it way down here. Whatever. Big T said no. And Lil probably says no too. Oh, since Dr. Hawk is here, Dr. Hawk, and we can have a deeper conversation about this later. I don't think he was in here when I was saying I was against mandatory paternity tests.
Why are you against those? I think that they should be mandated.
So I think that every man should have the option.
I remember we had this conversation.
The option should be there. I don't think that it should be mandated that every man has one.
I know you don't like mandates. I know you don't like mandates.
I mean, I'm okay with certain mandates, right? But it's the idea that this lady said this is your baby, so you have to give us your spit or a tube of your blood, right?
But it used to be a thing, like when people got married, though, they used to have to take blood tests. I think that because I just feel bad for men, especially the way the court system is set up, where the men usually loses out when it comes to paternity, and then you find out that ain't your baby.
I'm with you there, but there's a process in place that allow men to petition the court for a paternity test, right?
But that's the thing. Some of the men, like, because it's that extra step, like they don't do it now because of the fact that they have to petition the court. You know what I'm saying? But if it's done at the beginning and it's
right, but see, that's what I'm saying. Those men, at the end of the day, that's their problem, right? Because I shouldn't have to give up my bodily autonomy because you lack the courage to go file the paperwork.
But this is the thing, though. But what about for that man who believed that that was their child the whole time and it wasn't?
Right.
So this is the ones that the woman lied and said it was, because it was a politician or something that recently went, he was saying how he didn't find out his son wasn't his son until the boy is like 26 years old. Even the damage that does to the child too, like if they find out.
So, but my point is, and I'm not talking about, because I don't know at what point DNA tests came into existence. Right? I'm talking about the way we operate today, right? Every man has the option of going to the court. When this woman says this is your baby, right? You have the option of going to the court and petitioning the court to say, okay, she's saying this is my baby, and before I raise this child for 26 years, I would like a paternity test, right? If you're not willing to do that, then why then should I be forced to give up my bodily autonomy when you have a pathway? That's your pathway. If you want that pathway, you should take that option. I shouldn't be forced to. So a false equivalent would be some parents are abusive to their children, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to assign every parent in America or every couple in America a social worker, and you're going to get a visit from the social worker, whatever the revolution is.
It's not the same comparison. So let me understand something.
I say it's a false equivalent.
So, but this is the thing. The only time the paternity test comes into play is if two people come to court. So outside of that, you're not required to get a paternity test. So if you just
hold on right quick, because I want to make sure we on the same, we're having the same conversation, right? When we had this conversation previously, it wasn't a matter of if we go to court, right? Because I'm fine with the court saying, okay, y'all, there's a discrepancy here, we're gonna get a paternity test. That wasn't the conversation. The conversation was every time a baby's born, right? You have, so me and Lil have a baby, and they say, okay, Mr. Bradley, you have to give us a tube of your blood or your spit, right, to determine the paternity. And I don't have any right, or I don't have any recourse to say, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give you that.
Oh, I think that would be awesome. Because what you're saying is the court is not involved. This is happening at the hospital. This is happening
at the hospital when you choose to sign that birth certificate
on that joint. You should know exactly that's your baby.
But y'all are missing my point though, right?
I get what you're saying. You're saying that if you,
Well,
if
yeah, we're not missing it.
you're
Yeah.
100% sure that this is your baby, you like, this is my baby, you don't want to have to give up a tube of
Right.
blood. It's a lot of people that feel that way 100%, and they're wrong.
Okay, and you know what? That's their choice. That's on them because they're not willing to take the proper steps. Why then should I or you or any other man who doesn't want to give the government their spit or blood be forced to?
But it's not about them not taking the proper steps or not wanting to. It's not at this point, it's not about the man. It's about the woman being deceptive, like in my mind, because I've experienced like men having to pay child support for kids that didn't even belong to them.
Okay, Dr. Hulk.
And that
I
just
was gonna
like
say, go ahead.
Hold on. I have a question for you, right? If a woman gets, and Casey just alluded to this basically, right? If you get pregnant, it's because you wanted to, right?
I wouldn't say that.
I mean, I don't mean it.
You didn't do anything to prevent it, but not necessarily you didn't want
Correct,
to.
right? So when a woman when a woman's walking around with a 9-month belly, we are reasonably under the assumption that she's chosen to go forward with this, right?
Oh yeah, that she's chosen to give birth. Yes.
Okay, cool. That's on her, right? You're pro-choice, right? My body, my choice. I got pregnant. I chose to do what I wanted to do with my body, right? Okay, cool. So if that's the case for the woman, right? Then why then are we going to go to the man and say, you have to give us this?
No, go ahead, Dr. E.
So one of the things that we're missing is the impact on the child. We keep talking about the parents. We talking about the mother and the father, but it's a lot of kids that don't know their real father out here, and they think that that's their father.
Okay.
So there's some things that the government now maybe y'all can help me with this. Is there anything that the government has in place to protect you for which you may not know? It's not necessarily to hurt you, but to protect you, because I'm looking at it in terms of protection. Even though you're saying, man, you know, this is feel like it's intrusive and it's forcing me to do something that I don't want to do. It's for your protection to know that this is your child, and it's for that child's protection to know that these are my parents.
Yeah, but how much at some point government protection becomes oppressive, right? Government protection, that's like me getting up here and saying abortions can be bad for women's reproductive organs. So as the government, I've decided that abortions are outlawed because getting an abortion could mess up your reproductive organs. So we're going to keep you safe and not give you the option. But the flip side, what y'all are saying is, in order to protect you, even though I don't want the government's protection, right? I don't want the police sitting outside. I don't want the police sitting on my doorstep. Get the fuck away from here, right? I should have the option. If you want it, what I'm saying is the option should be there. I'm not against the option being there. What I'm saying is they shouldn't be able to say, you have to give us this. Because where does that stop?
But that's the thing. The government does a lot of things we have to do that we don't necessarily want to do, but we got to do it.
Okay, but just because hold on, Dr. E.
I don't want to.
Okay, Dr. E, let's say you pay 30% in taxes because the government says you have to, right? Are you going to be okay if the government says, well, since you're okay with paying 30%, we're also going to take 50% and you have to do it? Are you going to be like, nah, hold up, that's not?
What are we doing? Are we going to fight the government? Because right now
that's what they did in the past, but it's the principality of the argument, which is just because someone is oppressing you now doesn't mean that it's an argument to say oppress me more. It's okay at some point, right? And it might not be 50% for you. It might be 99%, right? It might be 100+% like our slaves. I mean, like our ancestors, like the slaves. But at some point, someone comes along and says this is too intrusive or too oppressive for me, and they push back, and that's how freedom comes about.
In this particular instance, though, I don't see any negative associated with this. This is all positive. This is all positive. You're going to get all benefit from this.
No, it's not. Yes. It's not. No, it's not all benefit. I'm telling you. You can tell me that it's all benefit. You can tell me there's no negative. I'm telling you.
The negative.
I'm telling you the negative, right?
I'm tired of you just not wanting to do it. I'm talking about the
No, listen,
negative.
the government being giving the government the power,
Hey,
giving the government the
I'm
power,
sorry.
giving the government the power, right, to dictate that you have to give them a tube of blood or spit or get a vaccine is a negative enough for people to say no.
It's not even, to me, like, now you swab your mouth and get some DNA. You can get a strand of hair to see if it's your kid. But I'm with Dr. E because it's not negative in the fact that, one, if the female knows that at the hospital, this is what's going to happen, I think that the woman would be least likely to sleep around, to be a mama's, what is it, mama's baby, daddy's maybe kind of situation.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, like down the line, when these parents are finding out, and now a man having to choose to leave a kid or get away from a kid because of the lie that was told or the truth that wasn't there.
Or, right, I'm with you. Some women do scandalous things. Or that man can grow a pair, go down to the court and say, I want a DNA test.
But why, if we cannot, like, why, like, be proactive so you don't have to do that? Like, because you go into the court system to get a DNA test, sometimes that's using taxpayers' money. So now I got to pay the court system and family court through my taxes because I have to pay for this. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So
Yeah, I do understand that.
because we're forced,
but even if you're going through the court system, that's fine. That's your choice. And like Dr. E said, we all pay taxes for things that we disagree with, right? Okay, cool. That's par for the course. But the idea that I also have to be subject to it when it's something that I don't want to protect a bunch of other people, I have nothing to do with. That's like the government saying, okay, we want everybody to be safe. You have to get a gun.
Well, let me ask you this then. How about this? Because when babies are born, like, they prick the heel of their foot to get blood. So you're saying that they shouldn't do that either from the
They
baby?
can't do that because the baby's got to be at least a certain amount of, I think it's 6 weeks before they can actually do what's the word that I'm looking for? A resourceful DNA match. The babies have to be a certain amount, but when it comes to
They're doing it in vitro, like, while the babies are still inside these bellies now too.
right,
But
and that's
are
under
they? But are
extreme
they doing it?
circumstances, though.
Is it mandatory?
No, it is not.
Oh, not
Paternity
for the
tests are not
DNA,
mandatory.
but not
The
for
only
the
time
DNA.
that the only time that a paternity test is mandatory is when the mom goes on. Okay, let's say, for instance, for me, thankfully, my baby's dad signed the recognition of parentage, right, at the hospital, because they knew that we had sex. It's our baby. We're going to raise it, right? If I was in a position that I'm being a single mom raising this baby by myself because dude doesn't want to step up and take responsibility, even though he got me knocked up, right? So I'm going to go on assistance. The assistance is going to want to know who the father is, because then they're going to petition him for child support automatically just because she's receiving government benefits. Then if they reach him, he could contest that, well, I'm not the father. Well, we want to prove that you are the father. So then he could get the DNA sample, or he can be the father because she says so. And in ordinary for him to not pay child support, he has to submit that DNA just so that way he don't have that financial obligation. So with that being said, a lot of these people are being manipulative, and it does put the burden of proof on the mom, especially when it comes to government support. But here in the state of Minnesota, you can't be a baby baby mom. You can't just go around getting knocked up to get benefits anymore. They capped it off. But in the event of government financial situation like welfare help, they do want to know who the father is, because they want the father to pick up the tab so the government doesn't have to necessarily, pay all the benefits.
I'm not talking DNA. I'm talking about at birth.
Right.
kids,
Um,
they prick their heel to get
Right.
blood sample, to get their blood type and all of that. So,
But do they?
like,
But
that's not done until 6
hold on,
months.
hold on.
The
no,
But
blood that's
hold
drawn
on,
at the
hold on,
hospital is just for tests
hold,
for
hold on.
it
newborn
was done
testing.
before. It was done when my kids were born.
Listen, they do it when the baby's born, right?
Yes.
Okay, they do it when the baby's born. Do the parents have the right to say no, we don't want that?
No, they don't, because it's done automatically when they test the babies for all the other stuff.
What is it called? What is it
When
called?
when a newborn panel is drawn with blood, they test everything, and even a
I just want
DNA
to know.
thing.
I just want to know the name of it. I'm gonna Google it and find out if it's mandatory.
The newborn panels, the
Yeah.
newborn blood.
But I thought a DNA
Panels,
to compare
PANELS.
was 6 months.
Yeah, if you just like put in newborn blood panel, so that's what they call it when they take your blood.
Yeah, they do it
Okay,
to check disorders.
so I put in, are newborn panels mandatory? Right? It says not necessarily. The RUSP is a guideline that helps states decide which conditions to include on their newborn screening panels. Each state makes its own decision about what their panels will include or not include. Most states screen for most conditions on the RUSP. Some also screen for conditions not on the RUSP. Okay. So it says not necessarily.
Well,
Right. So I don't go ahead, Casey.
That it has to be done, but each state can regulate what they're going to test for.
Okay.
But
Got you.
blood has to be drawn if given birth in a hospital, which is why some parents choose home births, right? You want to get around that, but if you're gonna be born in a hospital, then blood has to be drawn. But states can determine what they are going to test for. But
okay, cool. Casey, what's your opinion?
I don't know if I have one. I do think that if I had to say one way or the other, I would say yes. I think that people should know from the beginning that while we may not like the intrusion of it, I think that there is some level of responsibility that comes with knowing who is going to have to care for this child when they leave. And we can say all day that it's a small percentage, hopefully, of folks that, don't know or are knowingly withholding information from the other party. But I also think that outside of just thinking about um child support and paternity, like if you think about all the medical reasons of just knowing, does our DNA match? If that child needs a transfusion, if you as the parent needs a transfusion, if there's ever a situation where you need to donate an organ, so many times people come to those types of, circumstances in their lives, and they've gone all these years with the assumption that I can just give my child a kidney, I can just give my child a lung, and you don't know any of those things. I know people who don't know their blood type and don't know their kids' blood types, right? So outside of just the paternity piece, or in addition to, I should say, I think that there are some other benefits that come from knowing at the very beginning, where those things lie. And we put a lot of responsibility, and we talk a lot about men being reckless. There's a lot of reckless women too, who, hem up some men and have them believe until the day somebody leaves this earth that, that was their child. And I don't think that's necessarily fair. Give that man a choice to raise that child as their own if they want to stay in the relationship and stay with you, but to coerce or trick someone or just withhold the truth because an assumption was made, I don't think is necessarily fair.
Okay, so then that being said, if we are willing to go to those lengths of what I would consider to be intrusion to ensure the quality of life of a child, why are abortions allowed? because an abortion certainly ends the life of a child.
Right. I mean, but there are some people who are advocates for abortions for stem cells, right? So that another child's life can continue. I mean, again, I don't, these conversations, you're never gonna get an all or nothing. It's not gonna be black or white. I think there's a difference between someone making a choice to end a child's life or something that cannot be cured at all, right? Some genetic abnormality that a transfusion or the giving of an organ is not going to fix. And you make a decision about what kind of quality of life that child is going to have. Or some people make the choice because they're not financially ready or emotionally ready. We can argue all those points all day, but I think if you're going to go forward and bring a child to term and actually deliver this child, then I think that all parties need to know with 100% certainty what's what.
Yeah, that's off that's off center to me, right? In my thinking, right? In my software, right? If we say, okay, we're going to mandate a paternity test for the benefit of the child, okay, that's cool, right? That's what we're saying we're going to do. At the same time, we're going to allow the termination of a child based on a choice, right? So we can choose to terminate a child, right? Someone has that choice,
Those
right?
are two things for me.
I understand that. I'm giving you insight into,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm the one that's arguing the opposite, right? Every time I've had this conversation, I'm arguing. I'm the one that's I'm the minority, right?
Sure.
And so, to me, it's like we're going to force a human to do something that a human doesn't want to do to improve the life of the child, right? And then we're going to take another human and give that other human the right to completely eradicate any chances of life that child has. From a moral perspective, they don't land anywhere near each other, in my opinion, right? If you want to do one, then you would have to do the other, right? I'm not saying right for you to agree with me. I'm saying that from a principality standpoint, if we all agree that life is precious, then we should and deserves to be cultivated and to be brought into the world in a way that's healthy and happy, and we know all of the possible things that we can do to help make this a good human experience, then abortion should be completely off the table.
I mean,
Because
people who believe that, right? There's some people who want to abolish it completely. Like there should be no reason whether it's going to take the life of the mother, take your chance. Whether or not the child's going to get on the other side and it's going to transition 30 seconds later. Oh well, we'll have a memorial, right? There's some people who advocate for you're pregnant, let your body do what it's going. You got to get it to the end, even if that means your life ending, right? So, I mean, there are people who do have that stance.
But I get that, right? What if I were talking to those people, right? Then I would be making the argument, if that's your stance on that, then you can't give me any pushback on the mandatory DNA test. Right? What I'm saying is that there's an imbalance on the what's beneficial for me and what's not beneficial for me. Right? I want to have my cake and eat it too. Right? And what I'm saying is, when I think about if we're having the conversation based on what's best for the child, and the argument is mandatory paternity tests are best for the child, right? Then the argument on the other side is also bringing that child to full term is best for the child.
Well, I mean, that gets tricky too, because there are some folks, even in the medical community, who don't believe that there's a difference between a fetus and a child, right? And the difference that, I mean, again, semantics.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Disagreeing. I'm like,
yeah. But so for me, it is what happens when that child is here versus whatever decision you made in that child isn't here. And again, some of what I'm saying, I personally would never do in my personal life, right? But just
Right.
the conversation around it is, I think there is a difference between what happens when something is here and what do you do with that now versus decisions that are made that prevent that from happening.
Mhm.
I think that that's a perspective that minimizes the actuality of what's occurring. Right? When you say here, right? Here in this world is here. That's how we get here,
Yeah.
right? So, like I said, to me, I understand that there's differences in the applicability of there's differences in the applicability of the action, right? But from a principality standpoint, if we, like I said, we have the conversation based on what's best for the child, then there's two places you should land on both sides of the argument. If you land on different sides for different things, then your principle is flawed. That's how it comes out in my mind.
We would have
And
to
I don't,
agree with that one because I think they're two different things. I don't think,
yeah, you got to
I don't
isolate
think
it.
the two sides of the same coin. I think they're two separate coins.
I don't see it that way, right? When a woman gets pregnant, what is she pregnant with?
A fetus, an embryo.
A baby.
I mean,
Right?
that's what we call it because we have an emotional attachment to it. If we
No, that's
take
what
this,
we call it because that's what it is.
it's not a
But
baby until it's born. We
It's a
call
human, okay, a human life, right?
But
right.
even then, Charles, is what I'm saying to you, scientifically, we attach those things because we're preparing for what is to come. If you go, like even if you were to go and ask your OBGYN, what do they put on medical records? They don't put baby. They don't put human life. They put embryo. They put fetus.
Zygote.
Okay. So let me ask you this. If a man kills a woman that's pregnant, should we be able to charge him with feticide? Should we be able to charge him with the killing of an unborn child, of an unborn human life?
Yes.
I'm
Absolutely.
send that. I'm gonna say I think we do that to strengthen mandatory sentencing laws because the more folks you can add to it, the stronger you can give sentencing. Because if you've already got that person on murder for the mother, then 2 life sentences is just you feeling better about the kind of sentence you gave them. They only have 1 life. They can't serve 2 life sentences, right? So
I mean, I hear you. I think that could be the case. I mean, who knows? Because it's always more moving parts than what we would like for it to be in order for us to understand it, right? But I also think that as humans, as adult humans, and fully functional humans, we put those laws on the books to protect the most vulnerable of our species, right? And so that's how I see it. I love having this conversation every time I have it, but I do have to go to work tonight. So if y'all want to pick it up on Wednesday, we could pick it up again on Wednesday and go the full 2 or 3 hours into it. Everybody didn't get a chance to talk, or everyone didn't take the chance to talk. Everyone had the chance. But if anyone has anything else they wanted to add, this is your moment.
I'm gonna say this. I don't need another to-do item on my list going to the place to renew a marriage license. So no.
No. Okay, cool.
No.
Are you
I
against
hate
real
having to
quick,
go to
just
DMV. Huh?
because you're good at this, Dr. Hawk, you can accept that we can have the conversation later. Are you against some type of mandatory or mandated premarital training or counseling?
Not I wouldn't say premarital because I didn't have any premarital, but I think that along the way, maybe possibly mandating some
Bless you.
type of thank you, some type of marriage counseling along the way,
Okay,
you
I
know,
got you.
as opposed to having to renew your license.
Okay, got you. I mean, I
Because you
think
know,
at bare minimum on
strong
that, I think
families build strong communities.
Yeah,
And if
I agree. I agree. I think at bare minimum, in terms of the premarital training or counseling, even if they didn't do like a premarital, like you have to go through classes or something, there needs to be a form, right, that explains and expresses what it is that you're getting into, the financial pros and cons or ramifications of it. And on the other side of that form, on the other form, is this is what happens in our state if you get a divorce. And in that way, everybody knows what it is that they're getting into ahead of time. You can't say you didn't know. And if you didn't know, it's because you didn't read. And that's on you. So this was a great conversation. I feel like we haven't had one of these in a while, in a long time. So this was good. If y'all have any ideas of what y'all want to talk about on Wednesday, that'd be great, because I come up with topics all the time, and sometimes I kind of wish y'all would come up with one. So if y'all have a topic y'all want to discuss, other than Freestyle Friday, right? Let me know, and we can definitely do it. If you're on Instagram, I appreciate you rocking with me for the past 2.5 hours. I'm running a $99 special for your one-on-one with Chels. If you're on Instagram, type Beast in the comments and I'll DM you the link. This is a limited time with limited slots. It's 50 people. The last session will be on May the 3rd. After this, you're not seeing it no more, no time soon. And if you're on the Zoom, if you're a former client, if you've ever thought about, damn, I'd like to have a sit down with Chels, this is your opportunity to do so. That link is in the chat. Click it. It's in my bio, and it'll be in my Instagram channel. I'll be posting it on Facebook, and I'll be talking about it in my reels for the next month and a half. The earliest session that I have on the calendar is this Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I have 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and 4 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. For those of you who may be in different time zones, if you want to get off work. And if you want to book a session, but you don't have a time slot, just pick one of the time slots that's there, and I'll work it out with you, and we can set it up so that you can get your one-on-one. But in order to get the $99 price, when you check out, you got to use the promo code BEAST. Unleash the Beast. So that's what we're doing. And if you're a current client and you just want a session in between your sessions, there you go too. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Conversation was beautiful. I like how we can have these conversations without it turning into ratchetness or some super crazy shit, and we just express opinions, and then we say, I did agree, disagree, we go our separate ways until Wednesday. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. In the meantime, in between time, take your power back and unleash the beast. Peace.